What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Danny Zachlin. Welcome to a new episode of Second Take, a weekly video podcast where I'm going to discuss some of the hottest new titles on streaming and in theaters. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'm going to go over some of the big new releases on streaming, like Netflix, and some other movies that may be a little bit better for you to watch and they were underappreciated in the theaters. To start off with a bang, I'm going to be going over the new Netflix title, The Electric State, starring Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown, which is now streaming exclusively on Netflix. The Electric State has been brought to us by the Russo brothers, who famously brought us Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War. The biggest issue with movies like this, especially The Electric State, is the fact that it's basically the subprime mortgage of 80s action movies and beloved classics like The Goonies, The Terminator, E.T., even Ready Player One. Anything that Robert Zemeckis, Steven Spielberg, or James Cameron has put out within the last 40 years, they took all the bad qualities of those movies and initially put them into one really overpriced action movie, which is completely forgettable. The other biggest issue I have with this movie is the fact that it's really been highlighted for the amount of money that's spent on it. And I think that we need to stop doing that in Hollywood. I think we need to stop putting a price tag on every single movie. Just because a movie has a very big budget does not mean it's going to be good. If we think about recently over the last year, some of the biggest bombs at the box office, some of which we'll talk about later on this show today, they went ahead and had some pretty inflated budgets for some very interesting ideas. At the end of the day, Netflix is a big corporation. They understand their market. They understand that people that are watching their services may not actually be watching the movies that are put on screen. And as long as they click these algorithms and click these videos, they are technically viewing them. The problem here is that you don't need to spend $320 million on a movie that is essentially background noise for most people. I want the people that initially watched The Electric State to give me a full in-depth review to tell me what happened. Because I can guarantee you a lot of them were scrolling through their phones. I've noticed over the last couple of years, a lot of these big budget superhero movies or action movies, they make the plot so easy to follow along that about halfway through, you could have not been paying attention and they'll straight up tell you what happened in the previous scene. They're like, hey, remember when we went to that mine and then that guy came out and then my brother showed up and then this happened? And you're like, oh, I didn't watch half the movie, but thank you for letting me know. They actually pay some of their writers to go ahead and put these little hints into the movies. All I'm saying is that if we're going to continue to sell a stepped-on product to people, the people themselves that are buying this product need to understand that you are being ripped off. At the end of the day, too, I think a lot of the people watching Netflix are starting to understand how much they are ripping them off because the price continues to increase. I think Netflix right now for the 4K HD model is like $24.99 monthly. And all they keep doing is emailing you every single day. Oh, you know who we got? The Russo brothers. Hey, remember you like Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore 2? Yeah, only on Netflix. By the time these movies keep coming out, you're like, all right, like it was fun, but like I didn't need to spend more money on Netflix to watch this. This isn't quality content that you're producing. You're just constantly giving me a rehash of old ideas and spending a lot of money on them to go ahead and make them more relevant in today's times. Now, not all Netflix movies are bad, and some of them actually are pretty surprising. Last year especially, we had Hitman from Richard Linklater, and we had Carry On, that Die Hard style holiday thriller in the airport with Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman. These movies were fun. They weren't that expensive to make, and Netflix acquired them for a decent price. The problem is that Netflix doesn't realize that we'd rather see more of those movies than movies like this. If you think about their big budget movies, Red Notice, Six Underground, The Irishman, The Electric State, they're not that good. The Irishman probably being the best of them all, but even that, I'd say, is the weakest Scorsese film. These are all movies that big studios didn't want to take the risk on because of either the technology needed to go ahead and make the movie, or again, the overall budget. They didn't want to spend this money because they didn't see the payoff in theaters. Whereas Netflix is like, we don't have to worry about a box office return. We just need to worry about clicks. Just like Instagram and TikTok, you don't have to make quality content. As long as people are viewing your content, their algorithm is telling you that this is successful. That does not mean that it's quality content. Now, before I wrap up on the Electric State, I just want to say this. If you have to go ahead and babysit some nieces or nephews of your own, or you maybe have a lucky lady coming over tonight and you need some background noise, the Electric State is perfect for this. Because you know why? It's loud, it's dumb, and at the end of the day, you're not going to really know what's going on. But you know what? It passes the time. However, here are some movies that came out in theaters this past year that underperformed at the box office mainly due to its budget that I think deserve a second chance on streaming. Let's get into it. First movie I'm going to recommend today is Better Man, which is currently streaming on Paramount+. Better Man is the story of Robbie Williams, Britain's bad boy of pop. Now, I know what you're thinking, Danny, who's Robbie Williams? I said the same thing when I saw the trailer. Robbie Williams, just for your information, was the loose inspiration for Aldous Snow, Russell Brand's character in Get Him to the Greek and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now, Robbie Williams only had one hit single on the US Billboard charts, and that was almost 25 years ago. So to make a movie about his life is pretty remarkable, especially in the United States where nobody really knows who he is. But here's the catch. In this movie, Robbie Williams is played by a CGI monkey. I know. You're thinking to me, Danny, you lost me. You already lost me. But hear me out. This is why this movie works. Because of the fact we don't know who Robbie Williams is, especially most of us in the US, maybe you once have heard his songs here or there, it works because if we had an actor play him, we wouldn't know who to base it off of. We wouldn't know if he was acting, if he was transforming into the character, because we don't know who the guy is. What I loved most about Better Man was its visual effects. The film's director, Michael Gracey, is a visual effects guru. He initially started out in the visual effects department and got his start as a director with the 2017's The Greatest Showman. Now, with Better Man, like I said, he is initially going for it by making the main star a CGI monkey, which is a very hard thing to pull off. But a lot of the musical numbers, I gotta tell you, I didn't know what was CGI and what was real. They apparently shut down a portion of London to go ahead and film the Rock DJ musical number. And I'm telling you, half of it, you'd be like, I don't know if this is a computer or if this is real. But it's amazing. The choreography, the cinematography, the camera is just constantly moving from side to side. It is the most energetic musical I've ever seen. And yet I loved about this movie too is it didn't shy away from the dark parts of Robbie Williams' life. It didn't say, hey, listen, he wasn't a massive drug addict. And it doesn't show us that he made these songs for no reason. All of his lyrics and all the songs they chose to put in the movie have real depth to them. And when you listen to the lyrics, you understand why they fit into the story and how they're able to go ahead and propel a normal rags to riches story by showing a real humanized version of a pop star. Like I said before, the movie wouldn't work if it wasn't vulnerable, if it didn't show us this raw emotion. And by using a CGI chimp to play Robbie Williams, it kind of allows you to not really think about, oh, is this really what he looked like? Is he acting? Is that a wig? The most notable example of this is Bohemian Rhapsody. In 2018, they made Bohemian Rhapsody, the story of Queen. Most notably, it was a very failed production. From the start, initially, Sacha Baron Cohen had signed on years ago to play Freddie Mercury, but had left the project due to creative differences, mainly due to the fact that he wanted to highlight Freddie Mercury's drug abuse and sex life on screen, which the producers of the movie did not want to go ahead and show, and were really more interested in basically making a greatest hits catalog of how all the Queen songs were created. Now, the biggest problem with Bohemian Rhapsody was that it was a PG-13 movie, and they didn't even show any real aspect of Freddie Mercury's personal life, which ultimately led to his demise. Whereas Rocket Man, which was made a year later, dove into all those bad things. Elton John would not greenlit the project unless they showed his drug addiction, and they showed his lovers, and they showed all this stuff on screen because he said, that's what made me. That's what made the music. that type of pain is what initially made my music good. Better Man, for example, goes for it, and they show all of the pain that Robbie Williams faced throughout his life. And it showed how his music got better because of the fact that he was really pouring his heart and soul into his lyrics. And that he was able to go ahead and relate to an audience because of these lyrics. The best part about this movie, like I said, is that it isn't the greatest hits album. So since you don't know who this guy is or any of his songs really, you're not saying, oh, well, yeah, I got addicted to drugs and this is why I wrote this song. Or I got my heart broken and then I wrote this song. They tie the music into the story they're telling. So from the beginning to the end of the movie, they play in some of his greatest hits, but they allow the characters at any given point of his life to sing the songs, just like Rocket Man did, to show that these songs have real meaning and real depth to them, which I really appreciate in a musical biopic. In the end of the day, Better Man is a very good movie. From start to finish, it's energetic, it's tons of fun, and I'm going to tell you, I've been bumping the soundtrack for the last 3 months, nonstop, because his music is actually very catchy, and some of the musical choreography and camera work has been some of the best I've ever seen on screen. So definitely check out Better Man. It's currently streaming on Paramount+. My final recommendation for today comes on Amazon Prime, and it's The Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. The Fall Guy was a big budget production from David Leitch, the director of Bullet Train. Most people, for some reason, didn't go to see this movie, and I really don't understand why. There's so many good things in it. First and foremost, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt have undeniable chemistry. You could cut out any of the action in this movie. I would just watch a rom-com just with these two right here. A love letter to stuntmen, which is kind of weird to me. The whole movie is a love letter to stuntmen. No one went to see the movie, and it kind of shows how underappreciated these stuntmen are. In the movie, Ryan Gosling plays Colt Seaver, who's a stuntman who recently had gotten badly injured on set and returns to set to go ahead and find a movie star who's gone missing. At the same time, he's trying to rekindle the love of his life, who's played by Emily Blunt, and also unravel a Hollywood conspiracy about this major production that she's currently working on. It's loosely based off a 80s TV show of the same name, which, again, to make a movie about this 40 years later that has really no absolute tie-in to that movie makes no sense. But the other thing is that the movie itself kind of gets a little bit flawed towards the end. Like I said, the romance between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt is really what I came for and what I stayed for. The action, again, top tier. The stunts, out of this world. The plot, however, does get a little wonky towards the end. But the movie has some big stars in it. Again, Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Winston Duke, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso. These are all people who featured in this movie. And again, it was kind of also weirdly a farce, making fun of big budget movies like Dune, which weirdly had came out a month before this movie had came out. Because in the movie, they're actually filming like a Dune-esque type of sci-fi thriller, literally the same type of score and the same type of like dreary, gold-plated cinematography. And I kind of was like thinking that like they were kind of like taking shots at how movies like Dune or Lord of the Rings or these big budget sci-fi fantasy epics don't rely very heavily on stuntmen to do the battle sequences and to do all of these big explosions and everything like that. And we really don't know behind the scenes how this all works. So the cool thing on Amazon Prime, they do have the extended cut of the movie, which is at 2 hours and 26 minutes long, about 20 minutes longer than the original cut of the movie. But I would recommend to watch that version just because, like I said, at the end of the movie, there are a lot of subplots that kind of do get unraveled and it gets a little messy. Whereas in the extended cut, they do have the time to go ahead and explore those plots a little bit further and really make you understand this movie. The Fall Guy, in my opinion, was one of the most underrated movies of 2024. And again, it was a fun time at the movies. Please watch it tonight. It's on Amazon Prime.